Hi everyone. Can you imagine how shameful Pakistan's actions can be? You must have seen in the recent news. They have intentionally cut off gas, water, and other basic necessities for our Indian diplomats. Friends, this is not a small matter. At the Indian High Commission, our own mission in Islamabad, the supply of cooking gas, piped gas, mineral water, and even daily newspapers has been stopped. And this blockade isn't limited to the office, it extends to the homes of our diplomats and their families as well. So, let's understand this news in detail. To understand why this is happening, we have to look at the background of India-Pakistan relations. Our two countries have shared a long history of tension, from wars and border clashes to decades of political mistrust. Recently, things became even more strained after the Pahalgam terror attack, which shook the nation, and India's strong response through Operation Sindoor. These events pushed diplomatic relations to a fragile state. Instead of moving towards dialogue, both sides have taken steps that deepen the divide. In such a sensitive atmosphere, every small action, especially against diplomats, carries a huge impact. Diplomats are meant to keep communication alive even when politics fail, but when their basic needs are deliberately targeted, it damages the very bridge that holds dialogue together. One major trigger for this latest escalation was India's decision to suspend the Indus Water Treaty. Now, this is not just any agreement. It's a historic water-sharing pact signed in 1960, brokered by the World Bank, and considered one of the most successful water treaties in the world. Even during wars and high tensions, it remained intact. But after repeated provocations and incidents like the Pahalgam terror attack, India decided to review and then suspend the treaty. For Pakistan, this was a massive blow, because the Indus waters are a lifeline, vital for agriculture, drinking water, and even power generation. This suspension has hit Pakistan hard, creating both economic and political pressure. And instead of responding through diplomatic dialogue, Pakistan seems to be hitting back indirectly, like cutting off basic supplies to Indian diplomats. But history shows that when such symbolic hostilities begin, they often spiral into much larger confrontations. Let's talk about the blockade itself. Reports say that local vendors in Islamabad have been instructed not to supply essential items to the Indian High Commission. Things as basic as cooking gas cylinders, piped gas, mineral water, and even daily newspapers. And this isn't just about the office. These restrictions extend to the homes of our diplomats, affecting their families, including children and elderly members. Imagine living in a foreign country representing your nation and suddenly being denied even the basics you need to live and work. This is more than an inconvenience. It's a direct attempt to create pressure and discomfort for the people who are supposed to keep the channels of communication open. In diplomacy, such acts don't just break protocol, they break trust. This blockade is not just unfriendly. It's a clear breach of international law, specifically the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961. This treaty is the backbone of how countries protect and respect each other's diplomats. Article 22 says the premises of a diplomatic mission are inviolable, and the host country must protect them and ensure their dignity. Article 25 says the receiving state must provide all facilities needed for the mission to function normally. And Article 27 guarantees free and secure communication for diplomats without interference. By cutting off basic supplies, Pakistan is openly violating these commitments. Such actions undermine the very system that allows nations to talk, negotiate, and resolve differences peacefully. India cannot ignore such treatment of its diplomats. While our country has always valued diplomacy, there is growing talk of potential countermeasures. These could include imposing similar restrictions on the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi, tightening visa policies for Pakistani officials, and even reducing the number of diplomatic staff allowed to operate here. But let's be clear, while these steps might match Pakistan's actions, they also risk creating a dangerous cycle of tit-for-tat measures. And once that spiral begins, it becomes very difficult for either side to step back without losing face. The truth is, even though the Vienna Convention is binding under international law, enforcing it is never simple. In practice, it depends heavily on political will. And when relations between two countries are already strained, that will is often missing. International advocacy and raising the issue in forums like the United Nations can bring attention, but the effectiveness is limited. Most of the time, these platforms can only apply moral pressure, not force compliance. And when a crisis like this unfolds, the complications multiply, public opinion hardens, governments dig in, and even small compromises become politically risky. That's why incidents like this blockade are so dangerous. Once they start, resolving them requires far more effort than preventing them in the first place. Incidents like this don't just cause short-term discomfort. They have deep, long-lasting impacts on diplomatic relations. Every time such a hostile step is taken, a little more mutual trust is eroded. And once trust is gone, rebuilding it can take years, even decades. Inside both countries, domestic pressures start to mount. People demand retaliation, politicians respond to that anger. And soon the focus shifts from resolving the issue to proving who can be tougher. This makes genuine reconciliation even harder. History gives us plenty of examples, from past airspace closures to the cutting of essential services in 2018 and 2019, showing that once these measures start, they rarely end quickly, and often leave relations worse than before. That is why every such act is not just a momentary diplomatic jab. It's a step backward for peace, stability, and the hope of resolving long-standing disputes. Despite the tensions, there is always a path back to stability, if both sides are willing to take it. The first step is direct dialogue. Sitting across the table, even in the most difficult times, is better than letting silence breed hostility. If direct talks stall, trusted third parties, neutral nations or international organizations can step in to mediate. Sometimes, an impartial voice can help find common ground where both sides can save face and still move forward. Confidence-building measures are equally important. Small but meaningful steps, like restoring essential supplies to diplomats or reopening certain communication channels, can rebuild trust bit by bit. And finally, the international community must continue to advocate for the protection of diplomatic norms. The Vienna Convention is not just a legal document. It's a safeguard for global peace. Upholding it benefits every nation, including India and Pakistan. At the heart of this entire issue is one simple truth. Diplomatic norms exist for a reason. International agreements like the Vienna Convention are not just paperwork. They are the guardrails that keep relations between nations from collapsing into chaos. When these norms are respected, they create space for dialogue, reduce the risk of misunderstandings, and maintain a minimum level of trust, even between rivals. This is especially critical in regions like South Asia, where history, politics, and security concerns are already tightly wound. But the risks of non-compliance are serious. Once a country starts ignoring these agreements, it opens the door for others to do the same. That leads to instability, unpredictable escalations, and, ultimately, a breakdown of the very systems meant to protect peace. Upholding diplomatic norms isn't about showing weakness, it's about showing wisdom. Because in diplomacy, discipline and restraint are the real signs of strength. This incident is more than just a dispute over supplies, it's a lesson in how fragile diplomacy can be when trust is already thin. The road ahead will depend on whether both nations can rise above short-term provocations and focus on long-term stability. The lesson here is clear. When countries let anger dictate policy, they close doors that may take decades to reopen. But when they choose dialogue, respect for agreements, and a commitment to peaceful coexistence, they open the possibility of a better future, not just for governments, but for the millions of ordinary people whose lives are affected by these decisions. India and Pakistan have a complex history, but history doesn't have to decide the future. The choice to de-escalate, rebuild trust, and protect the channels of diplomacy lies in the hands of both nations. And it is a choice worth making, for peace, for stability, and for the generations yet to come. Friends, if you found this video informative, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with others so more people can understand what's really happening. And here's a question for you. Do you think India should respond to Pakistan's actions in the same way, or should it take the high road and focus on dialogue? Comment your answer below.